You're listening to the Geriatric Mamas podcast with Jessica Raziri
and Sonia Tapley.
Episode 22. It's just that doesn't even sound real to say. That sounds like we just made that up.
I know,
like
it really
we just
does.
did one. We did episode 1, 2, and now we're at 22.
I feel like every episode at this point is like a milestone because we're just
I know. We're on like borrowed time.
Yeah.
At this point, I feel well, it feels like we are just because of we're still again, we addressed this like a few episodes ago that we don't really have the best follow through, you and I, Sonia. So like the fact that we're still going is a miracle. I'm proud of us. So that's why I'm like, it's kind of borrowed time. The fact that we're still kicking. We're still here.
Exactly.
Exactly. So, so today we have a really special episode. As you guys could see from the title of this episode, it's a HOPEisode. We're going to be hearing Maria's story. But just a reminder for those that are just tuning in as to what a HOPEisode is. A HOPEisode it's the story of one woman's journey to becoming a mother. It's going to be talking about her struggles, everything that she went through. You know, when I was in the thick of my fertility journey, like I didn't want to hear about the stories of the women who, you know, had it easy and they just got pregnant and they weren't even trying and it happened. It's like, okay, that's great, but like that's not me. I can't relate to it. Like I wanted to hear the stories about how, you know, they were struggling and they were really going through it and all the odds were against them. And, you know, right when they gave up, then all of a sudden something happened, whether, you know, IVF was a success or IUI was a success, or they were in between fertility treatments and it happened. You know, I wanted to hear a story that, you know, gave me hope in the end that I wasn't alone. I was heard. And, you know, and it was just inspiring. And honestly, those stories are what I clung to. And those are the stories that encouraged me to keep moving forward and push, excuse me, sorry, and push through. Sorry.
That's okay. And that's actually, you know, I feel like that's
tongue-tied.
I feel like that's like a huge reason why we started doing the podcast to begin with. You know, we were taking all of these little tips and tricks that we learned along the way from the success stories that we had heard that you shared with me and I shared with you. And, you know, we started piecing them together into episodes, and then we got our miracle babies, and now we just have so much we want to share and talk about. So the episodes are our thing.
Yeah. So, Sonia, do you want to introduce who this special lady is here with us today?
So today we have Maria and her sweet baby with us. Maria and I met, I think it was back in 2001 when I was kind of promoting my photography a little bit more. And Maria decided to do a brand photo shoot with me and be almost like one of my models with her business, which is called the Homeschool Admin. Maria is a teacher and a consultant who helps parents and students navigate their homeschool experience. Her Instagram handle is the Homeschool Admin, and her website is thehomesschooladmin.com. So we are really looking forward to hearing Maria's journey to motherhood. It wasn't easy, and I need to stop saying because Jessica edits all of these.
That's what I was like laughing at. I'm like edit.
Yeah, I can see her counting my ums right now. So sorry, Maria. Welcome to the Geriatric Mamas podcast. We are so excited to have you share your story with our listeners. How are you?
Thank you so much. I'm doing really well. In the thick of motherhood, as you know. I'm here with her, and we got out of the car after falling asleep for a minute, and we're together. It's wonderful.
Yeah, she is just so beautiful.
Really Thank you. I feel like I'm learning so much about myself, about my friends who I've grown up with as they became mothers, and about, you know, there's just so much unfolding. I'm like constantly peeling back the layers and blossoming at the same time. It's weird. And she's a year old now. We're a year in, and it's just,
oh my gosh, happy
so
birthday,
much to say.
Gloria. Late, a little bit late. When was her birthday? Was it last week?
Or was the day before Thanksgiving.
Oh my gosh.
Last week.
Yeah.
Well, We would absolutely love to hear your journey. I know Sonia, shared with me a little bit about, some highlights as far as what you went through to get here. So why don't we jump right into it, if you wouldn't mind, opening up to our listeners and talking to them about how you became a geriatric mama to this beautiful little bundle of joy in your arms right now.
I'd like to start at the part of my story that begins with me finding out that I had fibroids. And this was in 2018, before my husband and I were married or trying to conceive. And it was just, it's really, for the woman, being a woman, it's really just it blows you back when you realize that you have something that you need to work on before you can start having children with your husband, who isn't even yet your husband. And so that's where I was at. I had to have surgery. I had a lot of fibroids. They had grown and basically taken over my uterus, a bucket's worth, peach-sized.
Oh my goodness. Bucket's worth.
3, of like peach pear-sized
My gosh.
fibroids.
Wow.
And so I was 28 at the 29, 30 at the time, and it was just a lot. It was a lot to do, but I just kept my head down and I kept doing it. Like as natural as I like to do things, as natural as I like to be, it was just a choice I had to make. And we had a myomectomy, so that was an open surgery, C-section like surgery. They took those out, and after that my period went back to like the clean 5 days, 28-day cycle. Everything was great. And then so we got married about 6 months. That's right. That's right. Dada put a ring on it. And then we got married and started trying. And it seemed like I always had the attitude that I would get pregnant right away. I'm not going to worry about that. That's not going to happen to me. And I guess if you have that attitude, let it go, because you don't know. It will happen. It can happen to you. And it did. So for 6 months we tried, and then we conceived, and then we had a miscarriage. And the miscarriage was another shocker. Like what? How? No, why didn't anybody prepare me for this possibility? And the only preparation I had for that possibility was when somebody had said, "Oh, tentatively, congratulations," when I had told them earlier than the 3 weeks. Or 3 months.
Oh
and
my goodness.
I remember hearing like tentatively, like, do I need to look that word up again? Because this seems weird to go together.
Yeah.
But it hurt, it stung when she said it, but when it happened to me, I realized why, and now, and it just changed. So anyways, we continued trying. So from there, the miscarriage, we had 1 more year of like, Maria's like, we can do this on our own. You're going to be wicked fertile right
Stubborn.
after.
I got this. Yeah.
Watch me clean up my mindset. Watch this. I'm going to work out and I'm going to do great. And all the things. Okay. So I started with working out, mindset stuff, like leaving places that were toxic and didn't make me feel good, like work environments and stuff. And then it was time to start asking questions again. And at the year mark anniversary of our first baby's miscarriage, I was like, okay, it's time for you to do something, husband. So we brought him in, and he got his sperm test, and it came back super sperm, of course. And so it's all on me again. And so we looked again, and I had more fibroid. I had a fibroid blocking my right tube. So it was a 1 centimeter fibroid. Went from a bucket to a 1 centimeter one. And they did that surgery. So that was not an open surgery. It was a quick 1-day surgery, but we did that again. And again, same messaging. You're going to get pregnant so quickly after this because you're super fertile. And so that mixed with my attitude of very optimistic at the time, I went home and tried again for another 6 months. And then we did 1 IUI cycle. That didn't work. We did Clomid a few times. That didn't work. And so we went to the IVF doctor. And at the IVF doctor...
Oh, sorry. You're probably going to get there. Did you guys feel like maybe the fibroids were preventing anything from implanting?
That was one of my concerns. Yeah. Those were one of my, that was one of my root cause concerns, or places you consider that you feel like your doctors aren't scratching at yet.
Right.
And so that was one of them. It was implantation and scar tissue I was worried about.
Yeah.
I was worried about progesterone in the second half of my cycle, because at the time I had no idea about what it meant to have my hormones balanced. I only knew at the time about estrogen and progesterone and thought that those were the only two things floating in my body. But between your thyroid and even testosterone and other things that we do have in our body that aren't really talked about, that
they all play together.
They all play together. And I didn't know that yet. So when I arrived at the IVF doctor, I hadn't had that information, but I was very curious, and I was on the tipping point of getting that information from the naturopathic doctor world, and just working with a naturopath makes a difference. So I'm in the IVF doctor's office, and my husband's in there, and he's super reluctant to basically try much, but he's tried everything with me.
Like
So
all the Kama Sutra positions. Just
yes, we have to mention that, because that is such a part of the journey.
Was it really?
Yeah.
Like the headstand,
legs up, headstands, 10 minutes on one side, 10 minutes on the other side.
Gosh, you girls are lucky. I'm like
try everything.
Kind of jealous. I haven't even gotten one of those books yet. Anyways.
I remember we have a kit. I'm looking over right now at the coat closet, because in the top of our coat closet there's a sperm like testing kit. Up there, $150 centrifuge and like everything.
Wow.
And because I wanted, he wouldn't go to the doctor, so I had to buy the thing to get the test. And then eventually he went to the doctor, and it said the same thing as this home kit did. So we're sitting in the doctor's office, IVF doctor, and we've gone, this is middle of COVID, so it was actually right when a year before I'd met you, Sonia. And
sorry, how old were you
I was
when all this was going on?
When we hit IVF, the time we hit IVF, it was probably like 2 years, 2.5. It took 3 years to have her, so it was 2.5 years from my first surgery. And so I'm sorry, age. How old was I then? 30. How old am I now? I was probably 31, 32 at the time.
Okay.
Yeah. When you're 35, you forget how old you are, and that's how they...
Right. It's true. No, it's true.
You start planning to say 36 early, because that's what you've done your whole life, but it doesn't. I'm 35 now, and so yes, she's a year old. I had her at 34, and 2 years before that, 32, we were really struggling hard. And so put my husband through all the things, and we're in the, and he's come to the IVF doctor with me, which honestly seemed like the furthest stretch from what he would do, but he did, because that was the direction of the allopathic doctor. We had done all the checklists that they had said, and now it's time to go to the IVF doctor. Not that I wanted to go to the IVF. I just felt like there was another way, and I was looking at a naturopath. But this was the more comfortable way, and it felt more like the next step for him, because that's what the authorities were telling him, if you will, that he knew well enough about in terms of fertility. And so we go there, and it was like, the walls were completely, there was nothing on the walls at all because of COVID, because I guess COVID jumps around on a piece of paper, and like pictures, and like it just felt so like a jail, because the building didn't have any, the rooms didn't have any windows, and they took us in 3 or 4 different rooms to talk with the same two people. I don't know what that was about. It just felt really weird. And so then we finally get to the coziest space of all, which was the office. It then we started getting into the nitty-gritty of the conversation, and my husband had his arms crossed and his eyebrows furrowed, and he just listened the whole time. He didn't say anything, didn't really even nod his head, shake his head, nothing. But the doctor, I can't tell you what the doctor said. It was just a standard IVF consultation. Besides that, he pulled out the naturopath's card and told me that I ought to work with her if I'm going to work with him, based on what I was telling him. So what he was essentially saying was, you have a lot of underlying root cause issues, and if we do IVF, we want you to be completely optimized. So go optimize yourself naturally with this naturopath. And it was Dr. Corina Dunlap, the woman who I've been having on, like talking to my husband about, having conversations with him about, and that it sort of lit his eyes up, and it that compared, when we started comparing like the price of her to the price of IVF, it was a no-brainer that we should start there and not do both at the same time.
Yeah.
And from there, it was 5 months after I had started working with the naturopath and implementing what she had given me for information about my bioidentity, my body, my thyroid, my deficiencies, my gut. I had leaky gut. And so I was just able to do a lot of healing.